The sun was bleeding red over the Wyoming horizon, painting the rolling hills in hues of fire and regret. I leaned against the weathered porch railing of my ranch house, the wood creaking under my weight, the faint smell of pine and dust clinging to the air. My coffee had gone cold, but I didn't care. I was watching her again, Karen, the HOA queen, striding across my land like she owned every blade of grass. Her neon yoga pants screamed against the muted greens of my pasture, and her voice, sharp as a barbed wire fence, cut through the evening calm as she yelled into her phone. "This is my view, and I won't let some cowboy ruin it," she snapped, oblivious to the fact that she was trespassing. Again. I'd bought this ranch 2 years ago, 200 acres of wild, untamed beauty, to escape the city's chokehold. It was my sanctuary, my hard-earned slice of freedom after a decade of grinding in a cubicle that smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams. But Karen, she saw my land as her personal playground, a backdrop for her Instagram-perfect life. She'd been at it for months, tramping through my fields, leaving gates open so my cattle wandered, even planting her tacky lawn chairs by my creek to meditate. The woman had a knack for turning my peace into a battlefield. Tonight, though, something in me snapped. Maybe it was the way her laughter grated like a rusted hinge, or the glint of her designer sunglasses as she tossed her head back, claiming my land as her own. I set my mug down, the ceramic clinking against the porch, and felt my jaw tighten. This wasn't just about her trespassing anymore. It was about her entitlement, her smug certainty that the world bent to her will. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me again. I grabbed my hat, the brim stiff with years of sweat and sun, and marched down the dirt path toward her. The air was thick with the scent of sagebrush, and the crunch of gravel under my boots echoed like a war drum. "Karen," I called, my voice low but carrying the weight of a storm. She froze, phone still pressed to her ear. Her lips pursed like she'd just bitten a lemon. "You're on my land. Again. Get out." She turned, her blonde bob swinging like a pendulum, and fixed me with a look that could curdle milk. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "This is public access. I checked with the HOA. You can't just claim this creek." I laughed, a short, bitter sound that startled a nearby crow into flight. "Public access. Lady, this is my ranch. I've got the deed, the survey, the whole damn thing. You're trespassing, and I'm done asking nicely." Her eyes narrowed, and she took a step closer, her manicured nails glinting like tiny daggers. "You don't scare me, Jake. I've got friends in high places. One call, and I'll have the sheriff out here proving you wrong." She smirked, and that smirk was a match to gasoline. My blood boiled, but I held my ground, the wind tugging at my flannel shirt, carrying the faint hum of crickets waking up for the night. "Call him," I said, my voice steady as stone. "I'll wait." She didn't expect that. For a split second, her confidence faltered, her eyes darting to the side like a cornered animal. But Karen wasn't one to back down. She dialed, her fingers flying over her phone, and within 20 minutes, Sheriff Daniel's cruiser rolled up, his tires kicking up dust that shimmered in the fading light. He stepped out, his boots heavy on the ground, his face weathered like the hills themselves. I'd known Tom Daniels since I moved here, good man. Fair. Didn't take kindly to nonsense. "Evening, Jake," he said, tipping his hat. Then his eyes slid to Karen, who was already launching into her spiel, her voice rising like a siren. "Sheriff, this man's harassing me. I have every right to be here. The HOA says this land is communal, and he's trying to bully me off." Tom raised a hand, cutting her off mid-rant. "Ma'am, let's slow down. Jake, you got your paperwork?" I nodded, pulling the folded deed from my back pocket. It was creased and worn, but every word on it was ironclad. I handed it over, and Tom scanned it, his eyes flicking between the document and Karen's increasingly red face. "This is clear as day," he said finally, his voice calm but firm. "Jake's the sole legal landowner. No HOA jurisdiction out here. You're on private property." "Ma'am." Karen's jaw dropped, and for a moment, the only sound was the distant lowing of my cattle. Then she exploded. "This is outrageous. I've been coming here for months. My lawyer will hear about this." She was shaking, her phone clutched like a lifeline, but Tom just shook his head, his sigh heavy with the weight of dealing with her kind before. "Ma'am, you need to leave now, or I'll have to cite you for trespassing." She stormed off, her yoga pants swishing like an angry snake, muttering about lawsuits and knowing people. I watched her go, my heart still pounding, but a strange calm settled over me. The sheriff clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You all right, Jake?" "Yeah," I said, though my voice was rough, like I'd swallowed gravel. "Thanks, Tom." He nodded and drove off, leaving me alone with the sunset and the quiet. But the victory felt hollow. Karen wasn't done. I knew it in my gut. She wasn't the type to let a loss slide. The next morning, I woke to the sound of metal screeching. I bolted upright, the sheets tangled around my legs, the air thick with the smell of coffee I hadn't had time to brew. I threw on my boots and ran outside, the dawn light pale and cold. There, at the edge of my property, was a backhoe tearing into my fence. Karen stood nearby, arms crossed, a triumphant smirk on her face. Behind her was a man I didn't recognize, stocky, with a cheap suit and a clipboard, barking orders at the driver. My stomach churned. She wasn't just trespassing now. She was destroying my land. I sprinted toward them, my boots slipping in the dew-soaked grass, my breath ragged. "What the hell are you doing?" I roared, my voice cracking with rage. The backhoe paused, the driver looking confused. But Karen didn't flinch. "I'm taking what's mine," she said, her voice cold as ice. "The HOA found a loophole. This section of your so-called ranch is under dispute, and we're claiming it for community use." I was shaking now, my fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached. "You're out of your mind. The sheriff confirmed my deed last night. This is my land." The man in the suit stepped forward, his voice slick as oil. "I'm Greg, HOA attorney. Our records show an easement error from 1972. This creek area is public domain. You'll be hearing from our legal team." My vision blurred, the edges tinged red. An easement error. After I'd poured everything into this place. My savings, my dreams, my sanity. I wanted to scream, to tear that clipboard from his hands and snap it in two. But then I saw a flicker of movement in the trees. Old man Tucker, my neighbor, was hobbling toward us, his cane sinking into the soft earth. Tucker was a recluse, a grizzled rancher who'd lived here longer than anyone, and he never got involved in disputes. Until now. "Hold up," Tucker rasped, his voice like dry leaves. He was clutching a yellowed envelope, his hands trembling from age or anger. "Couldn't tell. I've got something you need to see." Karen rolled her eyes, but Tucker ignored her, pulling out a stack of documents. "These are the original surveys from '68, he said, his voice steady despite his frail frame. "My daddy worked with the county to map this valley. There ain't no easement error. Jake's land is his, clear as crystal. Your HOA's been fudging records to steal what ain't yours." The air went still, like the world was holding its breath. Greg's face paled, and Karen's smirk vanished. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and fast, like a drum in my chest. Tucker handed the documents to me, his eyes fierce. "Take these to the sheriff. End this." I did. By noon, Tom was back, this time with a county surveyor and a deputy. They pored over Tucker's documents, their faces grim. Karen tried to argue, her voice shrill. But the surveyor shut her down. "These are authentic," he said. "The HOA's claim is fraudulent. Jake's deed stands." The deputy turned to Karen, his handcuffs glinting in the sunlight. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for criminal trespass and property damage. Let's go." Karen's scream echoed across the valley as they led her away, her perfect life unraveling with every step. Greg slunk off, muttering about misunderstandings. But I didn't care about him. I stood there, the documents heavy in my hands, the scent of torn earth and broken fence still lingering. Tucker gave me a nod, his eyes soft for the first time I'd ever seen. "Nobody messes with our valley," he said, then turned and hobbled back to his cabin. I rebuilt the fence that afternoon, the hammer's rhythm a steady pulse against the quiet. The sun sank low, painting the hills gold, and I felt something shift inside me. This land wasn't just mine, it was a promise. A stand against people like Karen who think they can take what others bleed for. I'd fought for this place, and I'd won, not just for me, but for everyone who'd ever had their peace stolen by someone too entitled to care. As the stars began to prick the sky, I sat on my porch, a new mug of coffee warming my hands. The air smelled clean, like rain and redemption, and for the first time in months, I breathed easy. Justice wasn't just a word, it was the weight of a deed in my hands, the sound of a sheriff's gavel, and the quiet victory of a valley that refused to bend.